I'm Howie Silberger, your political hitman here on Israel News Talk Radio. So happy to be here. We are live, which means that you can call in. Numbers to call in North America 301 768 4841. In Israel, the number is 0265 We got a lot to talk about. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about. The presidential debates happened. They just ended a few minutes ago, and I want to talk about that a little bit. We had the oddest Yom Kippur I've ever experienced. Got to talk about that, Yom Kippur and Corona. And of course, we'll take your calls because it's always important to let you call in, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about everything. Because without you, it's just me talking to myself, and that's not fun. Um, the numbers, by the way, are on the Israel News Talk Radio website. Just go to israelnewstalkradio.com, and numbers are on the top of the page. And while you're there, you know what you could do? You could join me in the chat room. I'll be in the chat room the entire show, so you could join me in the chat room on israelnewstalkradio.com. That you could do. That's easy. It's simple. So I watched the debates, and I'll tell you. Yesterday I substituted for grade two yesterday, and the grade two class were better behaved than the presidential candidates. It is scary to think that one of the two geriatric men that were standing on stage during the debates just a few minutes ago are going to be the president of the United States. Um, the the debates were interesting, and a lot of interesting points came out. A lot of back and forth slander came out too. But there were a lot of interesting points that came out. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I want to talk about Corona and the high holidays, and how different the high holidays were when it came to serving and then praying to God. And they were very different. And they were very different for me, and I'm sure they were very different for everybody listening. So I want to talk about that because I think that's more important than the American debates. Although we'll touch on both of them. Once again, you could call in. The numbers are in America 301 768 4841. In Israel, the number is 0265 IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I'm Howie Silberger. This is Political Hitman. I'm Howie Silberger, your political hitman, right here on Israel News Talk Radio. Feel free to join me in the chat room by going to israelnewstalkradio.com and clicking on that button on top that says "Listen Now" chat room, and you can call in because the show is live. Numbers to call: 301-768-4841 in North America. In Israel, the number is 02-6500-151. Operators are standing by to take your call and to put you on the air with me. All right, so I had the opportunity to watch the presidential debates. I had the opportunity to watch what is being referred to as a circus. I didn't think it was too much of a circus. I thought that I actually found it funny. Now, I didn't find it funny in a ha-ha kind of way. I found it funny in a peculiar kind of way. This was the weirdest political debate I have ever seen. This debate was, I don't know, it's being described by a lot of people as a sham. I didn't think it was a sham. I think a lot of information that we didn't have about both candidates came out in this debate. I think that the American people really got to know the candidates pretty well. And I don't think either candidate came out shining at the end of the first presidential debate in America. I have been a supporter of the president for 4 years. I support democracy, and I generally support whatever president is in office. I happen to like the policies of the current president. I have always been a Republican supporter, so the Republican president kind of makes me happy. He didn't come out shining during this debate. Neither did his opponent, the Democratic candidate. So I can't say that I think either one of them won the debate, because I think the American people lost in this debate. The petty mudslinging, although it was fun to watch, probably did not help sway anybody to either side. I really don't even care if the arguments they made were accurate or not accurate. The theatrics were a lot of fun to watch. It was quite scary that this is the cream of the crop. This is the top of the top of the heap when it comes to politicians and the and American political echelon. It is kind of scary, and I only hope, and this is all I'm going to say about this. I only hope that the president, the person who wins the election and becomes president, either Donald Trump, who remains president for another 4 years, or Joe Biden, who will become president if he wins, I only hope that whoever becomes president takes the job a little more seriously than they took this debate. Otherwise, the American people are in serious trouble. And when the American people are in trouble, the first people to suffer in America are the Jews. So I'm really hoping and praying that that whoever takes the job, whoever wins the job, will take it a lot more seriously than they took this debate. All right, moving on. We just had the high holidays, and the high holidays are always a time for me of reflection. I'll have to be honest with you. I love Judaism. I'm really those of you who listen to the show and those who have been listening to my various shows for years know that I love Judaism. I love God. I love Judaism. I am a big Judaism and God supporter. I really am. But I do not like, and I never have liked, organized religion. I never really liked the formatics of synagogue life. I've never really liked the idea of Jewish hierarchical leadership. I always found it fake and contrived, and that hasn't changed in my life. That has not changed. I still find it fake and contrived. I still find the way the hierarchy is developed within Jewish communities, whether they be in Israel or in North America, is contrived, is fixed. It's biased. It leans towards people. Now I'm talking about, let's say, lay leadership, and then there's religious leadership. Religious leadership I find is corrupt, mostly corrupt, and lay leadership I find is is generally just rich guys who get to the top because they give a lot of money. So this is how I see organized religion, and I have never been a big fan of that. Uh, I've never tried to be a big what do you call it, a big shot in the Jewish community because I never really liked organized religion. I never really liked the hierarchy and the politics and the stupid drama that comes with it, and that goes on the religious side and the lay side. So I've never been a big fan of that. So when I was told this year that the synagogue was closed because of the COVID outbreak, when I was told this year that we couldn't go to the synagogue for the high holidays, I breathed a sign of relief. I really did. I was quite happy that I didn't have to go to the synagogue for the holidays. It has been a long time, a very, very, very long time. In fact, I can't remember in the 46 years I've been alive, I can't remember ever being inspired by synagogue service. I can't remember ever being inspired by the prayer service that is given in a synagogue setting. Now I know a lot of people tell me, Howie, that's really anti-religious, but it's not. It's not really anti-religious. It just doesn't appeal to me. It doesn't talk to me, and this is where my issue with organized religion, at least with synagogue religion, comes. Now, I've been to synagogues right around the world. I've traveled extensively, and I've been to various synagogues around the world, and I haven't been to one service that didn't feel faked, forced, or contrived in one way or another. Now, I may sound like a heretic, and that's fine. I'll take the insults as they come. I'm good with that. But I'm being honest with you. And so when I was told that the synagogue was closed and I was not able to go to synagogue services this year, I breathed a sign of relief. I always dreaded the high holidays. In North America, the high holidays, everybody goes to the synagogue. It's a big show and tell. Oh, I went to the synagogue for 2 hours on Yom Kippur, and it's two times a year Jews that come to Al-Chet to bang their chests in repentance and then go out for a ham sandwich afterwards. It's so fake. It's almost vomit worthy. And so when I had the opportunity to not go to synagogue, when I had the opportunity not hear a guy standing in the front of the room and belching for 5 hours, I seized the opportunity. I was happy that I didn't have to go. It's not to say that I didn't pray at home, because I think prayer is very important. We have to pray, and that we have to pray to God, and that praying to God is important. So not that I didn't pray at home. I just don't like the way the service is structured. Now, and I've written extensively about this. I've spoken extensively about this, and my dislike for synagogue and for traditional Jewish ritual life is very well known amongst the people who know me and people who have read and followed my writings and my radio shows over the years. My disdain towards organized religion has been very, very. I've been very vocal about it. I've never hidden the fact that I'm not happy with it. In fact, I've been so vocal about it that there have been pulpit rabbis in North America, prominent pulpit rabbis, who have told me that I hold people to high standards, too high of a standard. I was told I hold people to too high of a standard, because I said that I didn't believe that the immorality and the corruption that exists in the rabbinate represents Judaism. I didn't believe that Judaism, the way it's practiced in certain synagogues and in certain communities, represents Judaism. I found it hard to to balance the idea that Jews are supposed to be a light upon the nation, and yet some Jews, I'm not saying all religious Jews because that's not true, but some Jews don't shine that light or pretend to shine that light or put on a uniform and then do things that desecrate the uniform. And this it drives me crazy when this happens. And I get upset about that. And so this brings me to this idea of COVID and synagogues. So I didn't go. I prayed at home, and I was very happy to do that. But many people decided to go to synagogues. So in the community I live in, there were regulations put out by the government. The government put out COVID regulations, guidelines, like governments around the world have put out guidelines, and these guidelines were very clear. And Jewish law is extremely clear. And yet, some communities that consider themselves Orthodox decided to not follow the guidelines. And when I think about the danger that some of these communities were putting some of their members into, and we all know that the dangers of COVID are highly exaggerated. People die, yes. People get infected. People get sick. People die, mostly elderly people and people with underlying medical conditions. The survival rate of COVID is extremely high. But when I think about the idea that a lot of these communities put the lives of some of their elderly into such danger, it angers me. And they call themselves religious, and that angers me even more. I want to tell you, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories when we come back from the break, because I think it's important we talk about this. I think it's important that we understand that a lot of this is exaggerated. A lot of the COVID rules are exaggerated, but we have to follow them, because even if they could save one life, well, we got to do that, don't we? Well, we'll talk about that when we come back from the break. I'm Howie Silberger. This is Political Hitman on Israel News Talk Radio. I'm Howie Silberger, your political hitman here on Israel News Talk Radio. You could join me in the chat room on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. You could call in North America. The number to call, 301-768-4841. In Israel, the number is 0265000151. So let me tell you a couple of stories about Yom Kippur. Just happened, Yom Kippur. So the government in the area that I live in has rules, and their COVID rules were that synagogues couldn't have more than 25 people in the synagogue. That was their rule, and the places of worship had to have 25 people. You could have a tent, you could have a bunch of stuff, but 25 people per per area that has one entrance and one exit. Everybody had to have an entrance and an exit. The exit had to lead outside. The entrance could only be entrance. The exit could only be an exit, and nobody was allowed to share exits. So we had the situation where people decided, certain religious sects decided that they were going to exploit loopholes in the law in order to expand their minyanim, to expand their quorums of men praying. So what they did was they misinterpreted the law, and they used every room. They put 25 people in every room of their synagogue instead of 25 people in the synagogue, or they just disregarded the law altogether. Some synagogues had 350 people, and some synagogues had 400 people, and they were raided by the police. And the police emptied the synagogues out, and of course the people in the synagogue started yelling, "Anti-Jewism! Oh, the police are attacking the Jewish community." This bothers me greatly. And it bothers me greatly because when you try to cheat the system, you get caught. Just accept it and walk away. To start yelling, "I'm the victim," when I'm trying to cheat the system, when I'm trying to best the system, is, in my view, ridiculous and actually condemnable. Now, that's my view. Now, some may argue, and I've heard this argument, that the COVID restrictions, the lockdowns, the restrictions on the amount of people allowed in stores, the closing downs of restaurants and bars and nightclubs and whatever else. Some people argue that it's overkill, that killing the economy for a disease that has a 99.94% survival rate is a little bit of overkill. And in that case, I will agree that I don't agree with lockdowns. I think lockdowns do not help. In fact, I think lockdowns are more dangerous than having people walk around and interact. Sure, we're going to see more cases because there is more testing going on. Sure, you're going to see more cases because the schools have been reopened and people are mingling more, so the disease is going to spread a little more. That does not make the disease more deadly. That does not make the disease more dangerous. It just makes the disease more present in the community. The more people talk to each other, the more people hang out with each other, the more people go to restaurants, the more people go to movie theaters and clubs and whatever else, the more this disease is going to spread. But the survival rate of disease is so high that the majority of the people who get the disease are not going to be injured. I mean, they'll be sick for a few days, a week, 2 weeks, and then they'll be okay. So we have to worry about the elderly people, the people with lower immune systems, and we have to worry about the people who have some kind of underlying medical condition. So those people we have to worry about. Those are the people, and traditionally this is how quarantines have always worked. The people who are most vulnerable to getting the disease have been quarantined, and everybody else has been allowed to run around and continue life. This has generally been the way quarantines have worked until COVID. They kind of flipped it. And so mass quarantines, mass lockdowns, seem to me to be overkill. Now, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, and I know people are going to say, "Oh my gosh, Howie said," don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't wear a mask. I'm not saying don't wash your hands. I'm not saying don't social distance, because all of those things are the most important things to stop the spread of COVID. Now, there's a debate about masks, and I understand the debate about masks, but look, what do they hurt? It doesn't hurt to put on a mask. Who cares? So wearing a mask and social distancing and washing your hands is the way to beat COVID until they have a vaccine or they have some kind of inoculation that's going to prevent COVID from spreading to people. And I'm good with that. Social distancing, no problem. Stay away from me. I don't like when people are on top of me anyway. I don't like that close, people standing on top of me and breathing on me and spitting on me thing. I'm not really that kind of person. I'm not one of those people who run around hugging other people. I know there are a lot of people out there who do that, or the double cheek kiss, or all the other emotional greetings. I'm not that kind of guy. I don't do stuff like that. So I'm okay with social distancing. There are some people that I wish would social distance forever, and I'm okay with washing my hands. I wash my hands a lot anyway, and I'm okay with wearing a mask because I mean, what's the difference? Who cares? It doesn't hurt anything. And even if they are ineffective, as the CDC has, as the Center for Disease Control in the United States has said more than once, that masks are probably ineffective in stopping the spread of COVID. But even if there's a 0.5% chance that they could stop the spread of COVID, or a 0.05% chance that they could stop the spread of COVID, and it could save somebody's life, then putting on the mask doesn't bother me at all. Because I think our focus here, and we focus on the wrong stuff, and the government's focused on the wrong thing. I think our focus here should be on preserving life. And if statistically life is a danger, COVID endangers life in certain areas of society, we should be focusing our efforts instead of locking everyone down and fining people for going to synagogue and fining people for opening a hair salon. I think instead of doing that, we should be focusing on protecting the vulnerable, the people who might be in trouble if they get COVID. And I think that's the important thing. That's what we should be doing. But that's not what governments are doing. Governments are focusing on instead of focusing on the micro, they're focusing on the macro. And while it's great to say we flattened the curve on the entire nation, and now nationwide we flatten the curve. But at what cost? Killing the economy? People committing suicide out of loneliness? We're going into holidays now. We were in the holidays, and then we're going back into holidays. And going back into holidays, you're thinking that some people, some lonely people, are going to be alone for the holidays again. I mean, they were alone for Passover. They were alone Shavuot. They were alone for Rosh Hashanah. They were alone for Yom Kippur. Now they're going to be alone for Sukkot. It's depressing for a lot of people. And if those people are not vulnerable or in the high risk categories, why would we stop people from going to visit them? How does that help anybody? I'm not so sure. If you want to get on the conversation, you could do that. Call in. North America, 301-768-4841. In Israel, the number is 02-650-0151. You could join me in the chat room on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Just click on that button that says chat room on the top of the page. But I don't see how that helps anybody. It really doesn't. And this is the only point I'm trying to make, is that if we are trying to save lives, we are endangering lives by doing lockdowns. Lockdowns cause more problems psychologically for people who are vulnerable, people who are depressed, people who are ill, people who are alone, than the risk of catching, the minor risk of catching COVID. Because even with all these cases, and I know that the governments absolutely love to tell you the amount of cases that they have, but they never bother to tell you how many they tell you the active cases, the people who are infected, but they never tell you about the people who are infected who survived. So and how many people were tested in relation to the people who were infected. So if you actually saw those numbers and you saw that there were, I don't know, I'm going to make these numbers up, so don't quote me on these numbers because they're totally off the top of my head. But if I'm going to tell you, if I tell you that let's say there were 3 million tests done, and there were 2,000 people out of 3 million tests that tested positive, and out of the 2,000 people that tested positive, 1,900 of them recovered and there were no adverse effects. Does that sound as scary as when they just tell you 2,000 people this week or yesterday were infected with COVID? The media has a vested interest in playing the numbers, and the reason they do, and the governments have a vested interest in playing the numbers, and the reason they have that vested interest, media's job is solely 100% to get you to read their papers, to watch their newscasts, and to listen to their radio shows. That's the goal. That's the 100% goal of all media. the government's goal is control. It's population control. So if we could control the population, then we could make it look like we're doing something that is countering this virus that we have no control over, that we have no cure for, and that we have no way to treat. Tell me, and think about this while we go to break. If you tested positive, going for a test, and you're having that thing shoved up your nose and going for a test, how does that benefit you? How does going for a test benefit you? If you have an answer for that question, give me a call. 301-768-4841 or 0265 I'm Howie Silberger's Political Hitman. I'm Howie Silberger, your political hitman, right here on Israel News Talk Radio. You could join me in a chat room on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. The chat room is open. The people are chatting, and we would love to have you join us there. And, of course, you could call in. In North America, the number is 301-768-4841. In Israel, the number is 02-6500151. So I was talking about masks and COVID prevention just before the break, and I asked the question, how do tests benefit you? So I got a couple of messages, and one of the messages I got was that Well, they're obligatory if you want to get onto a plane. They're obligatory if you want to do certain things. So they benefit me because they're obligatory, and if I don't do them, I can't do the things that I wanted to do. And I accept that 100%. But once again, it doesn't really benefit you in any way. It only benefits the government because it gives the government more data, which allows them to scare the population even more. Now, masks. I wanted to get back to masks. So, me wearing a mask protects you. You wearing a mask protects me. That's the general concept. If we understand that the spread of COVID is through droplets that come out of your mouth when you're talking, and that's how they spread. So the droplets from my mouth will come out of my mouth and hit you, and some of it might go into your mouth, and if it's infected, it'll infect you that way. So if we agree that that is the way that COVID is spread, then masks are effective if both of us are wearing a mask. If one of us are wearing a mask, then masks are not overly effective. If neither of us are wearing a mask, well, then we're just spreading disease. Now, this is not only for COVID, by the way. So this is the general idea for most diseases, like the common cold and the flu. This is how these diseases are spread, through droplets that come out of your mouth and your nose while you're talking. So wearing a mask, me wearing a mask is protecting you. You wearing a mask is protecting me. So if both of us don't have that mutual agreement that we're going to protect each other and that we're going to care about each other and protect each other, then whoever's not wearing a mask is putting the other person at risk. And so that's why masks, they said at the beginning that masks aren't overly effective. And whether they are or aren't, I don't know, it's still up for debate, and I really don't care. That's irrelevant. The point is that if there is a potential for me to stop you from getting, from me spreading the disease to you, if I'm God forbid infected, and if there's a chance of you not spreading the disease to me, if you're God forbid infected, and we come up to each other and we're talking, then I will wear a mask every time I'm in public, as you should, because I respect you and you should be respecting me. The people who are out there, the anti-maskers who are out there claiming, it's my body, I get to choose what happens to my body. Well, no. It's exactly the same argument as abortion. And I hate mixing apples and oranges, but it's not really mixing apples and oranges because it's the exact same argument. The second that your body is endangering, that your choice, is endangering somebody else's life, then it's no longer your choice in your body. The second that your choice endangers my life, so if I have a vulnerability, which thank God I don't know of, I don't think I have one, but if I do have an underlying medical condition, and your choice of not wearing a mask infects me, which causes me to go to the hospital, get onto a ventilator, and God forbid die, then you should not have that choice. You should not choose if I live or die. The same way I should not be able to choose whether you live or die. So, if masks stop me from spreading the disease to you and stop you from spreading the disease to me, then we both should be wearing masks. Because one of the major principles of Judaism is the sanctity of life. And so as a Jew, myself, my goal is to save lives. Life is holy. And who am I to take life from somebody else? And so even if I have the potential, even if it's a minute potential of taking somebody's life by accident, by spreading my germs to you, I should avoid doing that. And if wearing a mask is avoiding doing that, then that's what I should be doing. It's as simple as that. The logic is simply that. And those people who are standing up and opposing it, and people who are refusing to it, and people who are orthodox and refusing to wear masks, and there are a whole lot of those, they are not living up to the principles of Judaism. And this goes back to what I was originally talking about, the first things I said, when I said that this is why I don't like organized religion. This is why I don't like this hierarchy, where one guy makes a decision and then everybody follows that one decision. Because good people sometimes get caught up in the crowd. And then if the crowd is doing something that is not so life-saving, like not wearing a mask, then the good people get caught up in the same problem. And if the good people get caught up in the same problem, then they are as responsible as everybody else for spreading the disease and killing people who are vulnerable. So until we get this under control, until this is taken care of, until a vaccine comes out or some kind of inoculation comes out or some kind of a drug comes out to treat this, until something happens, we all have to be vigilant and we all have to stand and bite our lips and do what we have to do to protect people. Because if we don't do that, then we could be responsible, potentially responsible for murdering somebody. Now, it wouldn't be intentional, unintentionally murdering somebody. Now, I don't know about you. I don't know about your conscience, but my conscience doesn't allow me to even think that, God forbid, I should be unintentionally responsible for somebody's death. That would eat away at me for the rest of my life. Now, I don't know if you have the same moral conscience, and I'm sure the majority of the people listening to my voice right now have the same moral conscience, have the same idea that they would never want to be responsible for, God forbid, taking somebody's life, intentionally or unintentionally. So if that is your moral compass, then there is no debate and no question that you should be wearing a mask, that you should be social distancing, that you should be washing your hands on a regular basis, that you should be following the government guidelines when it comes to COVID, that you should not try to be playing games. You shouldn't be packing synagogues filled with 300 people if the government says that that's a dangerous thing to do. If doctors are saying, not the government, doctors are saying that that's a dangerous thing to do. You should be staying at home when they tell you to stay at home. Not because you want to be at home, not because lockdowns are fun, not because wearing a mask is fun. I mean, it's Purim time, we get to wear masks. No. Because you could be potentially saving a life. And if that is the case, and there is a minute chance that you are saving a life, seize the opportunity. Take the opportunity. So this is why I get upset. And I really get upset that some people balk at this. Some people don't believe in this. I ran into a bunch of people, young people, kids, and they were part of one of the religious groups, one of the Jewish religious groups. And the first thing one of them asked me was, "Do you believe in COVID?" Now the kid was 12 years old, so the question did not come from the kid. The question came from the kid's parents. The kid was parroting his parents, because 12-year-olds don't think that deep. And I looked at the young man and I said to him, "What do you mean? Do I believe in COVID? I mean, COVID is real. People are dying. So I don't understand the question." And the kid looked at me again and said, "Well, do you believe in COVID? Do you want to wear? Are you going to wear a mask? Do you wear gloves? Do you wear a mask? Do you wash your hands?" And I said, Yes, I do. I said, I believe that COVID could be dangerous to certain people, and I don't want to be responsible for hurting those people. So what about you?" I said to the child. And the child looked at me and said to me, "Well, no, not really." Now, this is called irresponsible parenting. Because even if it's 0.1%, I don't care what the statistic is. If there's a tiny, minute chance that you could save a life, why would you even take the chance? What kind of sick person do you have to be to take the chance that you might or your child might kill somebody? Now some will argue, and I know that I've heard the argument that with a disease like COVID, you would never even know that you did it. That it could have come from a million different places, and human mind always there's always rationalizes, and the rationale is always that it's never my fault. There's always some external force that came in and caused this, and it can never be me. But deep down, you know that you didn't take the proper and appropriate actions to try to save as many people as possible. So we are into lockdowns. Many different areas are locked down, and many different areas will be locked down within the next couple of weeks. And I urge you, and I implore you, to follow the regulations, to try to curb the trend, to try to flatten the curve, and to try to eradicate this plague from the earth. We have no control. We have to pray to God, and we hope and pray that God will eradicate this plague from the earth. But He could only do it with our help. So let's cooperate. Let's try to do the best that we can, and let's hope that this week will be the last of it. I'm Howie Sobiger. I will see you next week on Political Hitman here on Israel News Talk Radio.